and today I'm gonna be reacting to Share My Story. So let's get started.
Hey, I'm Lisa, and I always thought I had the perfect life. I was the valedictorian of my high school. I was in a long-term relationship with my boyfriend Ben, and I was about to graduate from Harvard Law School. But one day, I heard a notification on Ben's phone. He'd just left to go to a lecture and must have forgotten it. When I picked it up, I noticed that he had a WhatsApp message from a girl called Melanie. He had never mentioned her, so I started reading through their conversation and saw that they had been chatting for weeks. My stomach churned as I read their conversation. They were seriously flirting. I felt even worse when I saw Melanie ask him, "Did you get yourself checked?" My boyfriend Ben replied, "I went to the doctor today and he gave me the all clear." What the hell does that mean? When Ben came back from his lecture, I immediately confronted him. "I've read your conversation with Melanie," I told him. "What's going on? Are you cheating on me?" But instead of answering me, he got mad. "I thought you said you'd never go through my phone," he said. "Didn't you say relationships are built on trust?" Wow, I couldn't believe it. He was trying to turn this whole thing on me. "How can I trust you?" I said. "You've been flirting with another girl. Have you slept with her?" "Of course not," Ben replied. "You know you're the only girl I want." "So why were you chatting with her?" I asked. "We're partners on a college project," Ben explained. "There's nothing going on between us." He gave me a big hug and I felt a little better, but I couldn't ignore the fact that they had been flirting on WhatsApp for weeks. And they hadn't talked about any college project either. Things were a bit weird for the next couple of days because I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd read. In the end, I decided to find out the truth. So when Ben took a shower, I grabbed his phone and wrote Melanie a message which said, "Want to come over to my place? My girlfriend has gone away with her parents, so we can study here without distractions." She immediately wrote back, "Sounds great. What's your address?" Not long after, she arrived at our apartment wearing a very sexy dress and bright red lipstick. There was no way she'd come to study. I mean, she didn't even have a laptop or books with her. When I opened the door, she looked shocked to see me, and I called out to Ben, "You've got a visitor." When my boyfriend Ben saw Melanie in our apartment, he looked shocked too and couldn't bring a word out of his mouth. Next, I turned to Melanie and asked her if she always dressed like a hooker when she met up with my boyfriend. And then she said, "Now I know why your boyfriend wants to spend so much time with me. He can't stand you because you are an Wow, I was about to explode, but I kept my cool and simply smashed the door into her face. Afterwards, Ben immediately apologized to me about what happened, saying Melanie had been obsessed with him and that he didn't know how to keep her at distance. But I know what I read. My boyfriend had been flirting with Melanie for weeks. We're still together, but I can't really trust him anymore. He tried to hide their chat, and when I asked him what Melanie meant about getting checked at the doctor's, he said he'd just been feeling sick that day. But I don't believe him. It sounds to me like he'd been tested for an STD. Anyways, thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know what you think I should do. Should I break up with Ben or stay with him?
Know what you're thinking, that I'm a gold digger, right? Maybe so, but hear me out. Like most girls, I spend a lot of time on Instagram. You know how most people use it to brag about their life? Well, one day, I saw a post from one of those rich kids. His dad was a well-known billionaire in the telecommunications business, but this kid was living in the same city as me. I got curious and did a little research. I discovered that he had two hobbies, partying and fishing. And I found out that he often went fishing at a certain lake just 2 hours away from my home. I bought myself some fishing gear and went there every day for weeks. I was about to give up when I finally saw him. He was out on the little lake in a small boat. I waved at him and he waved back. I yelled, "Can I come in your boat?" He didn't respond, but changed directions and rowed towards me. He said, "Hey, how are you?" I told him, "I'm just out here enjoying nature. I was hoping to do some fishing." Of course, that was complete baloney, but he invited me onto his boat. We talked for hours. Everything I said were lies. Like, I told him I'd wandered around Yellowstone Park for 2 weeks. He believed every word, and even told me, "Wow, you're so impressive. Have you ever seen a bear?" I responded, "Yeah, a couple of times. And once I was in my tent and a pack of wolves started circling around it. I had my pepper spray ready, but luckily, they went away again." You see, he was happy to talk about nature because he was so passionate about it. After a long conversation, we exchanged numbers and went our separate ways. But the next week, we met at the lake again. This time, I'd prepared several other fake stories about how I'd been salmon fishing in Canada. I don't normally lie, but it can actually be a lot of fun. To be fair, though, he wasn't the smartest tool in the shed. I mean, I wasn't a good liar. He was just naive. But I wanted to take it a bit further. So we had a picnic on the grass. No one was around, and after a while I asked him, "Do you like me?" He said, "Sure." But I responded, "No. I mean, do you find me attractive?" He didn't answer right away, but then he said, "I guess so." That was good enough, and I leaned over to kiss him. He didn't stop it. After all, I'm okay looking. We met each other a few more times at his big mansion, and I always made sure he was enjoying it. Until I got pregnant by accident. You may think I'm a terrible person now, but the truth is both of us are. He's no prize. In fact, he's one of the most useless people I've ever met. He hardly ever goes to school and never works. He just takes money from his rich dad and spends it on stupid stuff. I haven't confronted him about the baby yet, but according to the laws in my state, he will have to pay me a lot in child support. I'm talking about millions of dollars. Of course, I don't know how much money he has right now, but his dad is already in his 80s. Once his dad dies, he will inherit billions, and my kid and I will get some of it. To be honest, I know I'll make far better use of the money than that worthless bum ever will. I got into a relationship with my boyfriend just 1 month after he came out of prison, where he served a 2-year sentence for drug dealing. It sounds stupid, but I was all over him, completely blinded by love. That's why I didn't mind that he started selling illegal substances again. He also told me it was only weed and that it would be legal soon anyway. But one day, he took my phone to send some other drug dealer an SMS. I didn't know anything about it, but then the cops came to my apartment and searched everything. My boyfriend was lucky because he was out at his friend's house. Meanwhile, the police found 200 grams of weed inside my apartment. Honestly, I had no idea my boyfriend had hid it there. But when the cops asked me if it was mine, I refused to answer and told them I wanted to talk to my lawyer first. Stupid as I was, I didn't pay for a good lawyer and got a public defender, which is a lawyer paid by the state. He looked so tired and even told me how overworked he was. But he said I shouldn't worry. This was my first offense, and therefore it was unlikely I'd be sentenced to any jail time. Well, I believed him. And because I knew if I snitched on my boyfriend that he'd be locked away for years, I took all the blame on me. I told the judge I'd been selling the weed to my friends. Unfortunately, though, she was in a bad mood that day and gave me the maximum sentence of 6 months in jail. I was shocked. This sentence would ruin my life. I would lose my job, and I'd be kicked out of my apartment because how was I supposed to pay rent from prison? I accepted my sentence anyway. Well, at least for 2 days. Then I got sick of sharing a room with some heavily overweight woman who snored like a bear. Also, my boyfriend came to visit me. He thanked me 100 times, but didn't say sorry once. You can't imagine how angry I got. I immediately called my lawyer and told him that my boyfriend had hidden the weed inside my apartment without telling me. My lawyer then contacted the police, who went to my boyfriend's home and found more illegal substances. In the end, I got a new trial and was exonerated, while my ex-boyfriend got 4 years for drug selling and another 2 years for pressuring me to take the blame for his crime. To be honest, I don't feel bad for him at all. He was willing to destroy my life. I mean, what kind of human being would send his girlfriend to prison? Oh yeah, a criminal. Looking back, I realized that he was one of the most disgusting people I've ever met. I thought he was cool and fun to be around, but actually, he's just a selfish loser who will hopefully rot in a cell for the rest of his life.
I had my first boyfriend when I was 17. His name was Michael, and he was sort of the complete opposite of me. While I was working hard to get good grades, he didn't care about school at all. He was pretty smart, though. Much smarter than me. Whenever I was with him, he made me feel safe. Like there was one time when we were in a trade station late at night, and 2 bad-looking guys came over to us. I was so scared, but Michael stayed cool and he just talked to them until they were all laughing. I never saw him nervous or afraid. He was always charming and confident. That's why so many girls in my school were after him. When I finally invited him over for dinner with my parents, I was really nervous because I knew he wasn't the kind of guy my parents would like. I asked Michael to behave and be polite, but when he arrived he was making jokes and just having fun like always. I suppose he was just being himself, and he did make me and my mom laugh a lot. I could tell my dad felt disrespected, though. He started to ask questions like, "How's school going? Do you have any plans for the future?" Michael didn't even try to impress my dad. He said he planned on becoming a rock star. We all kind of knew he was joking, but Dad didn't find it funny. At the same time, he was very charming with Mom and complimented her a ton. Mom really liked him, and that made Dad even angrier. I know it sounds weird, but the more Michael acted like a bad boy, the more I was attracted to him. When he left, my dad turned to me and said he forbade me to ever see him again. I thought he was just saying it in the heat of the moment, so I didn't think much about it. But when I tried to go out and meet Michael the next day, Dad locked the door and said I wasn't allowed to go out after school until I turned 18. He said I had to focus on my studies, not go out with some boy. My 18th birthday was still 6 months away. It was so unfair. I hadn't done anything wrong, so I decided to sneak out anyway. After I left, I sent Dad a text to tell him I'd be back at 8 and not to worry. My date with Michael was fun, and he was really understanding when I said I had to go home, but I was really nervous when I came back home. Dad was already waiting for me, and I was expecting him to yell at me, but to my surprise, he apologized. He said he'd been wrong to try to ban me from seeing Michael, and I was old enough to decide for myself who I dated. He finished by warning me to be careful, though. I hugged him and told him he was the best dad in the world. Now, I knew Dad was okay with me seeing Michael, so we carried on dating. But over the next few months, I started to notice things I just couldn't accept. For example, one time he laughed when he saw a homeless person slip on ice. Another time we accidentally left a restaurant without paying. I knew the waitress would have to pay for our food out of her own money, but he refused to go back and pay, saying we deserved a free meal. So I had to go back and do it for him. The most irresponsible thing he did, though, was to get a dog, even though he didn't have enough time to walk him or even enough money to buy him proper dog food. Instead, he just threw the dog out in the yard to walk himself and fed him scraps of his own food.
Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me.
The poor dog was so skinny you could see his ribs. That's when I realized that Michael was sort of a jerk. He was irresponsible and didn't seem to care about other people or animals. I finally decided to break up with him. Dad was right. I deserved better. Luckily, there was no big fight. Michael seemed a bit surprised, but didn't seem to mind either. So I asked if I could adopt his dog. To my relief, he said yes. So even though I don't have a boyfriend anymore, our family has a new member, and Dad also seems quite happy to have me back.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. See you guys next time. Bye!